Here on page 97, question 6, we're now looking at solving radical equations along with stating restrictions. So the first restriction we're going to look at is that the inside of the radical be greater than or equal to 0. However, we know that the 5 is positive, any number squared will be positive, and 11 will be positive, which means that this will be positive no matter what, or greater than or equal to 0. So what that means is the only restriction here is actually just XER. However, some of you might notice that x plus 5 also has to be greater than or equal to 0, which would mean that our final restriction would be x has to be greater than or equal to -5, and then of course our XER. Now in 30-1, you're not actually expected to recognize that at the beginning because you are expected to double check your answers. And if in double checking your answer you get an extraneous root, that is sufficient evidence for being full marks rather than having to put that restriction at the beginning. But if you do put it at the beginning, you can save some time. So now getting into solving, we're simply going to square both sides. And we do not have to worry about the negative root on the right side. Again, because we know that the square root will always come out as positive, we don't have to worry about the negative root. So this simply becomes 5x squared plus 11 is going to be equal to x squared plus 10x plus 25, which when put all into one side is going to turn into 4x squared minus 10x minus 14. And then finally, we're going to factor out a 2. So we end up with 2x squared minus 5x minus 7 equaling to 0. You do have to state that. Okay, so now it's just simple factoring. So it turns into decomposition. So 2x squared minus 7x plus 2x minus 7 is equal to 0. And after factoring, we're going to just get x, so 2x minus 7 plus 1 followed by 2x minus 7, and that's finally going to be equal to 0, which means x plus 1 is equal to 0, and then x, or 2x minus 7, is equal to 0, so x equals -1, as well as x equals 7 over 2. So if you caught the original restriction that x has to be greater than or equal to -5, these would both become valid answers. As well, if you were to plug both of these values in the sense of 5, -1 squared plus 11 is equal to x plus 5, or I should say -1 plus 5, -1 plus 5, you would end up with root 16 is equal to 4, which is true. And then here, you can put this in over 2 squared plus 11 to 7 over 2 plus 5. And just to save some time, I'm not going to fully put this one in because we know that it's a valid answer, but that is what you would have to do if this were, say, an exam. But for the time being, x equals -1 and x equals 7 over 2 is our final answer.